welcome to Tech Hit channel. And from today we are going to start with the DSA series. In this series we will be having the recorded sessions and there would be weekly contests, and one very important thing would be, in order to get a daily practice, you will be getting 5 questions to solve after each session. So with this, let's dig into happy coding journey and let's start with the very basic thing. Okay, before that, let me tell it to you that the language, first of all, I will be focusing on the pseudocodes, but if at some place I have to use any language, I'll be focusing on C++. You can use any of your language, no problem, because whatever pseudocode I will be discussing can easily be broken down into your code. Okay, so let's start with a very important thing, that is the skeleton of the code. If we start with coding, the first initial thing is to first of all choose a language, and after that know the skeleton of it, like how it should be. So let's begin with since we are taking C++, so let's begin with the example of its skeleton. So the skeleton of C++, I will be writing it here on the VS Code. It's hash include, then your package, that can be IOStream. Now what is IOStream, that I'll be letting you know. Then int main, this is the main function. So this is called the skeleton of the code. Now one thing I'll be like to tell you, what is hash include, IOStream, and what are all these things. So hash include, here this particular line says that we are including the IOStream package or library from the language in order to be used into the code for input and output purpose. That is, whatever functions are required for input and output, that could only be used if we call this particular, like if we import this particular package into our code. Okay, so for that purpose, let me tell you one more thing. For whatever function you use, the built-in functions, there is a package that needs to be imported into your code. Okay, suppose you want to find the maximum of the two numbers. So for that case, you will have to import or include. Include is the thing that we use here in C++, and import is used in Java. So we can write hash include algorithm in order to use the max function, max and min functions. Is that clear to you? So there are different built-in functions to be used, you require different packages or libraries to be brought into your code. Okay, now since like if we see that if we write a huge program which is a bit complex program, and we want to use built-in functions in order to reduce the complexity, like first of all in order to reduce the number of lines in the code, right? So for that purpose, instead of writing so many of the importing so many packages, we can do one very simple thing. Let's see what's that. So in order to import all the libraries and all the packages with just one line, or I can say one header, these hash include IOStream, hash include algorithm, or hash include mat.h, all these things are called the headers. Okay, and these are the very first line of your CPP code, remember that. So all these headers can be replaced with just one header, and that is hash include bits / std c++.h, and this does all the work of including the different packages if needed. So whenever you have to write a huge program, you don't need to get all these different packages. Instead of that, you can just use this one header and everything is done. Now let's come to what is to be done for input and output. Let's understand how we will take input and how we will take we'll give the output. So for that thing, I'll let you know one important concept, that is, in this IO stream that we discussed, this package which I said that for like we use this package in order to use the input and output functions, right? Now remember one thing, this particular package slash library has two functions, that is cin and cout. For what purpose? Cin is for the input purpose and cout is for the output purpose. And remember, these two are the functions of this particular library IO stream. Okay. Now how we will be using it? So let's take for example, I have to let's take an example first of all. I have to take n is equals to 5 and we have to then print 5. Okay. So for that, first of all, this is the skeleton. This has to be there, right? Now let's come to the input and output part. So for input, first of all, we will be declaring the variable where we have to store that number. Because whenever we have to store anything, we need to declare a variable of a certain data type. Okay, whatever is the requirement of our value, that particular data type is declared along with that variable. Now why is this declaration of variable done? Let me tell you first this and then we'll go to the code part. So this, I said I have to store 5 in n, right? Now what I'll be writing is data type. First of all, let me tell you the syntax how we will be writing, how we'll be writing it. So first is the data type, then comes your variable name, okay, and then semicolon you can put. This will be called as declaration of variable. Now why is this particular line important before taking an input? This line has a significance because once you put a particular data type here and put a variable, there would be a memory formed in, like there would be a space that would be assigned to this particular variable. Suppose this variable is n and this data type is int, that is integer data type. So integer has a size of 4 bytes. Okay, so the 4 bytes of the memory would be stored for the variable n. Okay, so this particular step, that is declaration of variable, is done in order to allocate the memory to the variable. Okay, so just I'll like you to remember one thing, why is declaration of variable done? Okay, so this is declaration of variable, and why is it done? To allocate space for the variable, for the value, actually I can say, for the value to be stored in memory. Is that clear? Is that clear? Or in short, you can say for memory allocation, declaration of variable is needed. Okay, so when you declare int n, so 4 bytes in the memory would be reserved for this particular variable n. And now once you have reserved a place for this variable, then only you can input a number. Without declaration you cannot. So let's come to the code. Int n, which I said would be declaration of variable. Okay, now next line, what I said, first of all you will declare the variable, next you will take the input. Now to take the input, you will write std cin and n. Okay, this is called input. Okay, we are doing the input. Now I have to print this particular n value, right? So suppose I have to print the value of n in the format, just a second, in the format, suppose I enter 5 and I want it like n is equals to 5, okay, because at the entrance we know we have to input 5, but what actually is there, let's see that. So for that, n then equals to space and then your n value. Now for this, now what will happen is, let's see, let's execute the code first of all. So let's see what will happen. So it is asking for input. Suppose I input 5 and enter. N is equals to 5, and then the next line is starting from here only. It didn't change the line, and that's something which doesn't look neat, right? So in order to change the line, here comes the next concept that I wanted to tell you, that is endl. Now endl is used in order to change the line. Whenever we have to get to the next line, you can either use \n, which is escape operator, or you can use this endl. Okay, so for using endl, again you have to do this and then std endl. Is that fine? And now let's see how the input and output goes. Okay, now it's asking for the input. Let's input, this time let's input 8, and now what you see is 8 is the input, and in the next line it prints n is equals to 8, and the next line of the printing goes to the next line, right? Like it's not printed in the same line. Is that clear to you? So that's the importance of endl. Now we have understood the change of line, we have understood std and everything. Don't you think there's a lot of std being used here? Can we remove this multiple usage of std? Instead of that, can't we do something which can like just be like c in and then n, then c out, n equals to endl, something like that? Is that possible? Yes, it is possible. Now how it is possible, let's see. So after the header, you have to write one more line, that is using namespace std. And once you write this line, you don't need to write std double colon here and std double colon here and here. Like everywhere you don't have to write this thing. You don't need to mention. Okay, so this will make your code more neat and you don't have to write much, right? So let's better include using namespace std for a better performance, just in order to reduce the work we have to do, right? So let's see, this will execute in the same way, there won't be any problem. This time 9 and n is equals to 9, right? So we are done with headers, we are done with input and output. We know how to change the line also, what is declaration of variables and everything. Now we know what is declaration of variable. What is initialization of variable is also one thing that we need to know, right? Now suppose I write int n is equals to 5. This particular line would be said as declaration and initialization at the same time. Okay, so this is called declaration with initialization. Okay, and suppose if not this, then one more thing is we can first declare it, n is int n. This will create the memory, and then in the next line we can write n is equals to 5. So this is declaration, this is being declared, this is being initialized. Okay, is that concept clear to you? Hope so, yes. So now let's move on to the next thing, data types. There is int, there is float. Okay, first of all, let's not discuss float. Let's see to long and long. There is long. Sorry. Then there is byte. Then for decimal, the numbers which will include the decimal values, there is float. For the same purpose, there is double. I am messing up with this. Wait a second. For the same purpose, we have double. So now just tell me one thing, and other data types are also there, such as your char, which is used to store the character. Then there is string data type, which is used to store the string. String is always stored in double quotes, and characters are stored in single quotes. Is that clear? Okay, so we have understood about these many data types are there and everything. Okay, fine. Now suppose we have, I'll just let you know what this data type has because these data types are based on their size. Usage of these data types are based on their size, because see, you cannot store a bigger value in int and you cannot store a very small value in long. Why? Because the rest of the space would get wasted, right? So we don't have to waste those space, and so in order to utilize the memory properly, we use there are many data types for one particular purpose. Okay, so we'll be discussing this. Then let's come to the if statements. Now what are if statements? Why is it used? Right, now suppose, just understand first of all, and then we'll come up to the code part also. System, grade system, everyone knows about it, right? Now how does your grade system works? If your marks is greater than 90, it's A plus, right? If your marks is greater than 80, greater than equals to, sorry, just a second. Greater than equals to 80 and marks is less than 90. So what grade you get? Like, this is the system which I had in my school time, so I'm just taking that system. Okay, so it's A grade, right? If it's less than if it's less than 79 and greater than equals to 70, then it's B grade, and so on it goes on, right? So how will you, like, if suppose I give you the marks of a student, how will you categorize it if this particular marks is getting what grade is that marks getting? So for that purpose we use if else statement. That means if you fulfill this condition, then run the following set of lines. Else, if this condition, whatever is written with if, is not fulfilled, in that case your else block executes, and whatever code of lines are written there, line of codes are written there, that are executed. Okay, so for if else thing, we can check for, suppose if we want to take input A and B, two numbers, and we want to check if A is greater, print A, if B is greater, print B. This we want. So for that purpose we can use this if else statement. Is that clear? Now we discussed about if else. We will code there, but first of all let's discuss the more things which are there related to if else. This was if else thing, right? If we have to check for two numbers and which is greater. Now suppose we have to go for the grading system. Now what for the grading system? For the grading system, this is here also if else is used, but here a new term comes, that is if else if. That is, if marks is greater than equal to 90, print A plus. If else if marks is greater than equals to 80 and less than 90, print A. Else if, like there are many conditions, then we use if else if. Okay, suppose there is only two condition, that was for the case of checking maximum between two numbers, then we used if else. If there are many cases to be checked, then we use if else if. Okay, and for the last case we just write else. So let's come to the coding part. Let's first of all take an input int n, then cin n, then if okay, we wanted to have two inputs, right? Int a comma b, cin a and cin b, right? Now we have to check if a is greater than b. Okay, if a is greater than b, what I want to print? I want to print cout a is greater than b. Else, okay, don't put this else if. Else, if a is less than b, that means b is greater. For that case, print b is greater than a. I'll just copy paste this thing and change the variables. Okay, so this is the part that I wanted to let you know. So this is compiled successfully. So now what I have to say, what I have to input is a and b, two numbers, right? So suppose I input 8 and space I input 4. So what should it print? 8 goes to a and 4 goes to b. So 8 is greater than 4, right? So it will be printed a greater than b. Let's see, is that printed or not? Okay, so it's printed a is greater than b, right? That means our code is working well for if else part. Now let's come to the second part that I told you. Now let me just and in order to comment a line of code, many line of codes, you can easily like for multiple multiple commenting of lines, you can use backslash star and then the ending with star backslash or slash, or for single line commenting you use double backslash. Okay, double slash, sorry. Now let's come to if else if part. In the if else if part, what I said was, let's take n, suppose n is the marks, so let's take marks and let's input marks. Now let's check if mark is greater than equals to 90, then what will I have to print? Then cout okay, else if mark is greater than equal to 80 and mark is less than 90, in that case I want it to print a. So C out of A, right? So how is that? Okay. C out of A. Else if. Now similarly, the same things would go on. Sorry, it has printed something which is not needed here. Less than 60, then it's C grade. If it's greater than 60 and less than 70. If it's greater than 50 and less than 60, let's do it D grade. And then for 40 to 50, E grade. And if it's less than all of these particular conditions, what it will execute is it will print F, right? So this is the use of if else if. Is that clear? So let's check once if this program runs successfully or not. It compiled successfully, as you can see. Now let's input the mark. Suppose I input 78. The grade is B. Why the grade is B? Let's check. The marks we input is 78, right? So it is less than 80, right? So if it's less than 80, it should not go here. It should go here. So less than 80 and it's greater than 70, right? So in that case, it will print B. Is that clear? So if for other cases also you can check, and suppose I input something which so that it can print F. For that purpose, let's input 29. It should print F. It prints F. That means that our program is working correctly, right? Let's move on to the next thing, that is nested if else. Now what is nested if else? Nested if else is using conditions like if else conditions inside an if else condition. So basically what happens is, for an example, there are 3 numbers, okay, A, B and C, okay. Now I want to print the smallest of them, okay. Let's say I want to, among these 3, I want to print the largest. Is that clear? So for the largest, first of all, suppose what I will do is I'll check if A is greater than B. Is it greater than B? Okay, fine. Then check if A is greater than C. If this condition is okay, great. Let's check if A is greater than C or not. If it is greater than C, then I want C out of A, right? Sorry. But else, if A is not greater than C, then I want what? If what I said is A is greater than B, A is not greater than B. If A is greater than B, we will come inside of the loop, inside of the if else statement. I'm so sorry. Inside of the if else statement, right? Once I come inside, I'll check if A is greater than C. It says yes, it is greater than C. And I go, okay, fine. If it's greater than C, then print A. Print A is max. Print A is max. Okay. This is what I wanted to be printed. Now, suppose A is less than C. Okay. If A is less than C, what I want is, I want C to be printed. C is max. Right? Okay. Now, check one thing, that this particular if has not the else. Like this if has this else, but this if has not yet reached its else. So now we will write else. Let's come to the code part. So first of all, let's input a, let's declare the memory. So declaration of variable, then let's take the input. Done. Now once I have taken the input, what I said is this particular thing, right? If a is greater than b, it will come inside and check for if a is greater than c. If a will be greater than c, it will print a is greater than b and c. If this particular condition is not fulfilled, then it will come to the else part and print c is greater than a and b. Correct? Now come to the else of a greater than b. If a will not be greater than b, then it will come to else section, the outer else. Then it will again check if b is greater than c. See, we already said that b is greater than a. Then only we came to this else statement, because it was checking if a is greater than b, it would have executed this part of the code, right? But since it's not executed, we understood that b is greater than a. Now b is greater than a is good. Now let's check if b is greater than c or not. So we will check if b is greater than c. If b is greater than c, it will print b greater than c, a and c. Else, it will print c is greater than a and b. Is that clear? Now let's run this code and see if it works correctly or not. It's compiled successfully, and let's see. Let me input 6, 2 and 9. Sorry, 6, 2 and 9. So 6 will go to A, 2 will go to B, and 9 will be assigned to C. So all these three variables have been assigned with a value, right? So if 6, 2, 9 are assigned, what do you think would be printed? It should be printed that C is greater than A and B, right? Exactly. So let's check how it will go. A is 6, B is 2. Is 6 greater than 2? Yes, it is greater than 2. Then it will check if A is greater than C, that is 6 is greater than 9. No, it is not. So it will come to this else statement and execute this particular line. Okay. So here it comes to the end. It won't be running for this, it won't be executing for the other lines of code in the else part. Okay, this is the final thing it will run and stop. Okay, so this is how if else, if and nested if else works. Okay, now in the next session we will be talking about the switch case, then we will be talking about some conditional statements, and we would be talking about break, continue, what is fall through, and everything. So for that, let's visit in the next video. Till then, happy coding.